Today's job, we have a maple floor we're doing here. You can see they're prepping this house for resale. You can see here, you got some pretty severe scratching going on here. So they just want to spruce it up and get it ready. Okay, so we can see how the maple's coming up here. This particular hardwood, it's a fair bit denser than oak. I'm hitting it with 40 grit to start. I don't like to go too coarse on this grit. Like 24, you could hit it with 24, but you're gonna put really deep gouges into this wood. And so I'm just gonna hit it with 40. Then we're gonna take it up to 60, then 80. So you can see it's coming out pretty nice right now. And we're just going to continue on rocking this out. So one of the things we have to consider when we're starting a room is where we want to start the sanding. Now, in general, because this is the front of the house here, and there's the entrance, when I get to sanding all this area here, I want to go start to finish with my standing here and going in this direction. This Clarke machine here, actually, you see the way the drum works. When I stop, it puts little stop marks. So now when I turn direction and I go the other way to finish off the little area, the 3 feet that's here, this overlap here, this overlapping area here will be there'll be a visible difference. And those visible differences here, these are all going to be maquetted out, hand maquetted. And with maple, it pronounces the stain. We're staining this a weathered oak, kind of like a, well, weathered oak, but what happens is in these areas here where you have the crossover, I call it a crossover, right? It's a stop line. It tends to leave, you know, a horizontal, like a perpendicular mark to the direction of the planks, right? So we'll have to maquette those out, right? They'll be maquetted out. And so I always try to minimize the amount of stop lines that this machine is going to create. So we always try to think, okay, where's the best location to start our sanding to minimize these? So we got a good open run here, about 6 feet, where we're going to go start to end with no stop lines. I'll be able to actually start the drum right here and run it across to the end. All right, so these are the things that we always got to plan through when you're planning your layout of the machining, and it's all basically to make your job easier when it comes to the next process, right? We're always thinking ahead. What are we going to be dealing with later? So keep that in mind when you're sanding. From time to time we'll run into situations where it's really tight quarters, like this here. So you're not able to run, you know, you have to run the drum in the direction of the grain. But when you get into situations like this, sometimes you can do a little bit. So it's time to, this is what calls for the old one-handed technique. I want to show you how we do that. So in traditional sanding, you always want to go with the grain. Now you can cut across the grain. You're going to rip the grain though if you do that. So you'd end up having, you're going to have to get those marks out anyway, either by edger or palm sander, and it's a lot of work. But so wherever possible, we try to always go with the grain. When you have a tight quarters like this, there is a one-handed technique you can use with this machine, and I'll show you how to do it. So that cuts down the amount of edging we have to do there now, right? So we got, it's a lot less edging. Who needs a gym membership when your job is a gym? You don't need the Harvey Brooker weight loss clinic. You have the Hardwood floor refinishing weight loss clinic. What we have to do now, John's edging down there, but what he's edging over here now, what we're going to do now, we're going to remove these edge lines. So one of the challenges of working with the Clarke drum sander, the EZ8, is that it tends to leave horizontal lines when you stop. So, you know, we feather it out, and I feather it out and can get a pretty good job of, you know, minimizing the appearance of these horizontal lines. But whatever's left over, we have to use the palm sander to remove. And this is how we do that. You can see over here, palm sand that. We're going to remove all these marks with the palm sand. Yeah, so it's critical that we remove these marks with the Makita, because if we don't do it, when it comes time to stain, they're going to be so pronounced that they'll just be very visible. So you always got to take all those stop marks from the drum sander off. Time to tack the floor. This is what came off after about 80 square feet. For this job, we're using Varathane Weathered Oak wood stain. So with all of these oil-based wood stains, you thoroughly stir it, making sure we bring all the pigment that settles into the bottom corners of the can. Bring it right up into the mix. I've applied links to everything I used in this video in the description below. So we're back the following day. The stain is dry. So we're ready for the first coat of urethane. So in this job we're using Fabulon Satin Urethane. So the first coat has been applied. Take a look around. Even after one coat, it looks really good. Nice satin finish. So I'll be screen sanding, vacuuming, tacking, and then applying the second coat. I'm only doing 2 coats on this job. So you'll find while screen sanding with the pole sander, 180 grit, the screen tends to clog up like this. So what I generally do is I'll just vacuum it out and then reuse it. You're gonna have to change it up a few times. So this is about 300 square feet, this room. So I'll probably end up using about 4 of these. You know, I just find it clogs, they clog up and then they just kind of become useless, right? So yeah, you have to have a few of these cut for size before you get started. So if you are using the pole sander like this, I find extending this up to the maximum that you can reach your arm is the best way to do this, because it'll provide more leverage when you're actually sweeping the floor, and it makes it easier on you. If you're down too low like this, then your leverage point's lower here and it's more difficult. So I like to extend this up. You get a lot better leverage on it. Much better leverage on here. It's just physically easier, it's less demanding on you. The key is to work smart. We know it's hard work already, but if we work smart, we can, you know, lessen the hardness of the work and the difficulty level. So one other point though, with the maple, it's a much denser wood than oak. Wood is more fibrous, whereas maple is like a denser wood, so it's harder in terms of the fibers. So even after applying the first coat, it's still very smooth. We're just, certain areas, it does raise the grain a bit, so we need to do this step. And then whatever urethane has kind of created that little coarseness, we knock it down with this. So definitely is an important step that we have to do. If we didn't do it, then you know, it would look worse and just end up more difficult to deal with the following day or when it was dry. If you found this video helpful, please hit like and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more upcoming videos on how to sand, stain, and finish your hardwood floors. Dave out. Now, another point is you're probably thinking, why don't I just use the square buff to sand this? And I'm always concerned that that's just a little bit too aggressive, and we'd end up going through, there's only 1 coat of urethane on here, so if we use the square buff, that's quite aggressive, even with the screen. You can 220 screen it, but still there's always that potential of it going through. So, you know, I would rather just do it by hand where I can control the pressure, see how it's, you know, see how much it's removing, and then take it from there. But yeah, that's why I don't use the machine at this point.